Death addiction. The chilling case of Dr. Harold Shipman, a trusted doctor turned serial killer. He was the friendly face of medicine in Hyde, Greater Manchester, in United Kingdom. A trusted GP, Dr. Harold Shipman made house calls and offered comfort to the sick. But behind his gentle demeanor lurked a monster. For over 2 decades, Shipman preyed on his patients, injecting them with lethal doses of diamorphine, ending their lives with a twist of his syringe. He was the epitome of betrayal, a man sworn to heal who chose to kill. His victims, mostly elderly women, trusted him implicitly. They never suspected that their compassionate doctor was their executioner. What drove this seemingly ordinary GP to commit such horrific acts? The answers, like Shipman himself, remain shrouded in mystery and horror. His case stands as a chilling reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, wearing a smile and a reassuring voice. This is the story of Dr. Harold Shipman, a man who went from respected physician to one of history's most prolific serial killers. Harold Shipman's early life was marked by a tragedy that would foreshadow his dark future. Born in 1946, he was a bright but solitary child, close to his mother, Vera. She instilled in him a strong work ethic and a belief in the power of education. Vera was a dominant figure in Harold's life, shaping his worldview and ambitions. She was not just a mother but a guiding force, always pushing him to excel academically and socially. However, her love came with a controlling edge, and young Harold became overly reliant on her. This intense bond meant that Harold's world revolved around his mother, and he had little room for other relationships or interests. When he was just 17, tragedy struck. Vera succumbed to lung cancer. Shipman witnessed her agonizing decline, the morphine injections providing only fleeting relief. This experience left an indelible mark on him. Some speculate that witnessing his mother's suffering sparked a morbid fascination with death and the power to control it. He pursued medicine and excelled in it, perhaps seeking solace in the very profession that failed to save his mother. However, his interest in medicine seemed to be less about healing and more about control. He was particularly drawn to the effects of drugs, especially opiates like morphine, which had eased his mother's pain in her final days. This early exposure to death and drugs would prove a toxic combination, laying the foundation for the monster he would become. Shipman's journey from a grieving son to a medical student was marked by an increasing detachment from normal human emotions. He wanted to be in control, to have the power that he felt had eluded him during his mother's illness. This obsession with control would eventually lead him down a dark path, one that would see him become one of the most notorious figures in medical history. Shipman's medical career began in 1970 after graduating from Leeds School of Medicine. He was a promising student, known for his dedication and intelligence. His professors had high hopes for his future in the medical field. He started as a junior doctor, eventually becoming a GP in Todmorden, Yorkshire. It was a small town, and Shipman quickly became a well-known figure in the community. It was here that the first whispers of his dark side surfaced. Colleagues and patients began to notice odd behaviors and unsettling patterns in his practice. He developed a reputation for being aloof and arrogant, with a disturbingly blasé attitude towards his patients' deaths. His demeanor was often cold and unfeeling, which raised eyebrows among those who worked with him. Shipman also displayed a concerning interest in opiates, forging prescriptions for pethidine, a powerful painkiller. This recklessness cost him his job and nearly his medical license. The medical board took notice, and he faced severe consequences for his actions. Undeterred, Shipman moved to Hyde in 1977, setting up his own practice at Donnybrook House. This new beginning allowed him to start afresh, away from the scrutiny of his past. He quickly gained the trust of the community, becoming a familiar face in the homes of the elderly and infirm. However, a sinister pattern emerged. The frequency of deaths among his patients began to rise, and the circumstances were often suspicious. His patients, often elderly women living alone, began dying at an alarming rate. These deaths were often sudden and unexpected, leaving families in shock. They died in their homes, seemingly of natural causes. The lack of immediate suspicion allowed Shipman to continue his deadly practice unchecked. Few questioned the sudden deaths, attributing them to old age. The community's trust in Shipman was so strong that they couldn't fathom the possibility of foul play. For years, Shipman operated with impunity, his crimes masked by his charm and the trust he inspired. However, his web of deceit began to unravel in 1998 with the death of Kathleen Grundy, a wealthy 81-year-old widow. Unlike his other victims, Grundy's death raised suspicions. Her daughter, Angela Woodruff, a solicitor, was shocked to discover that her mother's will had been altered, leaving everything to Shipman. Woodruff alerted the police, and an investigation was launched. Grundy's body was exhumed, and a post-mortem revealed a lethal dose of diamorphine in her system. This was no natural death, it was murder. The police then began to look into other deaths linked to Shipman, uncovering a horrifying pattern. They discovered that he had a habit of visiting his victims shortly before their deaths, often administering what he claimed were pain-relieving injections. Further investigation revealed that Shipman had been fraudulently obtaining vast amounts of diamorphine, using his patients' names. Shipman was arrested on 7 September 1998, sending shockwaves through Hyde and beyond. The arrest of a trusted local doctor, someone who had been a part of the community for years, left everyone in disbelief. His trial, which began in October 1999, was a media sensation. The courtroom was packed with journalists, and every detail of the proceedings was scrutinized by the public. Prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence, including medical records, witness testimonies, and the damning toxicology reports, which were particularly incriminating, showing lethal doses of diamorphine in the bodies of his patients. Shipman, maintaining his innocence throughout, claimed that his patients had died of natural causes. He argued that the high levels of diamorphine were due to post-mortem redistribution, a defense that many found hard to believe. The high levels of diamorphine found in the bodies were consistent with deliberate overdoses, not natural causes. However, the jury saw through his lies. They deliberated carefully, considering all the evidence presented to them. On 31 January 2000, the verdict was announced. Shipman was found guilty of murdering 15 of his patients, a decision that brought some closure to the grieving families. With the true number of his victims estimated to be much higher, potentially over 250. This staggering number made him one of the most prolific serial killers in history. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The judge, Mr. Justice Forbes, described Shipman's crimes as wicked, wicked crimes. He emphasized the betrayal of trust and the cold-blooded nature of the murders, and told him, "You will spend the rest of your life in prison." The sentence was a reflection of the gravity of his actions. The trial exposed a deeply disturbing truth. A trusted doctor had exploited his position to play God with people's lives. The impact of his actions would be felt for years to come, as families and the community tried to heal from the trauma. Well, that wraps up the chilling case of Dr. Harold Shipman, one of the darkest tales we've covered yet. What are your thoughts on Dr. Shipman's case? Do you think there were signs we missed? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. I'd love to hear your theories. If you were gripped by this story, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss a terrifying story like this again. Craving more chilling tales that'll keep you up at night? Explore our earlier videos shown on the screen and uncover even darker secrets.